Welcome to The Dish, the culinary travel podcast focusing on the stories behind world-famous foods.
We are your hosts, Tomo and Megzi from foodfuntravel.com. Join us for tasty histories, destination food guides, and more.
In this episode, afternoon tea and high tea. What is the difference? Who invented them? And how rich do you have to be to enjoy one? We play a game of posh or peasant. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of The Dish.
Yes, another little episode to get your taste buds tantalized for something you might not have had for a while or ever had. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a very British dish, having afternoon tea.
Is it a dish or it's a multiple dishes?
Well, I mean, we've always sort of said that a dish is sort of like the presentation of a food. So like fish and chips is a dish, even though it's two things.
True.
You could have chips on the side and
like,
a fish.
Yeah.
But fish and chips is like a dish. So this is called afternoon tea. It refers to a specific set of foods.
Yes.
So that is why I consider it to be a dish.
All right, fair enough.
Yes, there are many dishes on the dish, I guess.
Yes.
So that's fair as well. But yeah, I mean, why not? It's our podcast. We do whatever we want.
Exactly.
So yeah, is there a difference between afternoon tea and high tea? What's the difference? Any ideas?
Well, afternoon tea makes me think of coming home from school and having a packet of chips and some 2-minute noodles before watching cartoons at 4 p.m.
I mean, that doesn't sound that upper class, does it?
But that's what makes me think when I think of afternoon tea. Where high tea makes me think of having your crusts cut off cucumber sandwiches.
Oh.
And perhaps like a cellist playing in the corner.
Oh.
And levels. There has to be levels, right? You get like a dish, serving dish.
It has to be a tiered dish.
Exactly.
Yes, interesting. Okay, well, in this episode, you're going to learn a lot.
Probably, yeah.
Because there you go. No prompting, no information. That's your opinion right now. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, everyone's got their different definition of what they consider to be afternoon tea, high tea, tea time, all of these different sort of tea-related afternoon sort of time of day sort of things.
I'm guessing you have to have tea.
I mean, most of these probably involve tea.
Yeah.
But we'll discuss that as we go along. But yeah, I mean, I think these words have been used both interchangeably and mistakenly, and in different countries they've been corrupted and used differently to mean slightly
like
different
my packet
things.
of chips and 2-minute noodles in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, that's a strange tea time extravaganza to have just junk food tea time. Must be an Australian thing.
Well, it's not always just junk food. It's just like coming home from school and grabbing whatever's easy because you're hungry before the cartoons start.
Well, all right, no, fair enough. But still, like a pack of chips and super noodles or pot noodle is not particularly healthy food, is it?
No.
All right, so, I mean, both of these traditions, like the afternoon tea and the high tea, are very much a British thing, of course, no surprise there. And they are definitely different types of tea, different types of tea time. So, yeah, not specifically the actual tea drunk, but the actual, the event that occurs. It is definitely a different sort of thing. So we're going to get into sort of the story behind both of those, exactly what they are, what they really are defined to be, and a little bit of history about some of them as well. And maybe have a little bit of a chat about some general tea time stuff, some personal preferences, and of course, posh or peasant. I feel like with your pot noodle thing, you're already heading onto the peasant side of this game, so...
Maybe they were very classy pot noodles.
I don't think so. Yeah, there'll be a game of posh or peasant later in this episode as well. And you can play along at home and you can decide for yourself if you are posh enough to enjoy a fancy tea time. Okay, so basically, the afternoon tea is the fancy one.
Oh.
And high tea is absolutely not the fancy one. That is the peasant's tea.
What?
I know. How confusing is this? So afternoon tea is your very fancy, sitting in a nice place.
Crumpets?
Not really crumpets. I mean, that would just be tea time. Afternoon tea is specifically like cakes and the cucumber sandwiches, and the tiered serving of food.
So what I think of high tea is actually afternoon tea.
Yes, that is afternoon tea.
Oh.
To be enjoyed in a nice environment of sophistication.
Yeah, with the cellist to the side.
Yes, exactly.
Pinkies up, ladies.
And high tea is actually sort of just, that is the peasant version. And it is very different.
I am dumbfounded.
Yes. The word high makes it very confusing because that makes it sound like it's a sophisticated thing.
Yeah.
That is actually not what the word high in this context means at all.
Was it actually like back in the day they just had a whole bunch of like tea and opium and that's where it came from?
That's one option. That actually is not it at all. But we are going to get onto exactly what high tea is later in this episode and exactly why it is not the fancy version. But first up, let's have a look at afternoon tea and sort of who invented it and how it all came about. So yeah, of course, this is a British tradition. Sandwiches, scones, or scones, if you want to say it really fancy.
You'll make me want one.
Cakes.
Nice fresh scone with clotted cream and jam.
Well, that's something different necessarily. So I'll explain that as well.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, there's a lot of different types of tea. This is
so I'm not allowed to have clotted cream?
Yes, you could have clotted cream, called a cream tea. If you have just scones, tea, and clotted cream, and maybe some jam, that's called a cream tea, not an afternoon tea or a high tea or anything.
Oh my goodness.
Specifically called a cream tea.
Your people are strange.
I used to enjoy many a cream tea because I'm not fancy enough to have afternoon tea all the time. So cream tea was an excellent alternative for middle-class people.
Oh.
So high tea for the poor people. Cream tea for the middle class and afternoon tea for the upper crust.
Oh dear, with toffs.
Yes, very toffee. So you'd normally have this big selection. Afternoon tea is the fancy selection of lots of different things, but scones might be included in that selection, but it wouldn't just be scones. And around 4 p.m. in the afternoon was the standard thing.
Just before cartoons.
Just before the cartoons, yes, because of course we're heading back to the 19th century here, where they traditionally would watch cartoons in the afternoon.
Yep.
So why not? Apparently, the Duchess of Bedford, Ms. Anna Marie Russell, she, in the 19th century, mid-19th century, sort of around the 1840s, people reckon it first happened, she decided that she was a little hungry in the afternoons. And she had that sort of sinking feeling.
Yeah, afternoon slump.
A little bit of afternoon slump between meals. And she decided, well, let's put together some nice little snacks and some tea with lots of caffeine in it. Probably Darjeeling tea, apparently it's believed, might have been her preference. And let's put all that together and eat that. So then she'll keep strong, ready for dinner time later. Now, there's a little bit of conjecture about the exact date or the exact place where this happened. Some writers believe it might be at the 5th Duke of Rutland's castle, Castle Belvoir, and could be on a trip there that the Duchess of Bedford sort of had a bit of an afternoon where she was feeling a little faint, but I need to eat things. So probably the staff of the castle invented this meal.
Yeah.
She just went, I would like some tea and some other things, some delicious things to eat. And they went, oh my God, we've got nowhere near enough food ready for dinner. What are we going to do? I'll just put some cucumber in some bread. All right. And you got some cakes left from yesterday. Yeah, there's some cakes.
I have to admit, cucumber sandwiches are the worst. I don't know why it's seen as being something so posh, because it's lame.
I don't know. It's just it's refreshing and it's light. And this is supposed to be a light meal. So that's why the crust's cut off and just cucumber. I mean, who knows if they cut the crust off back then.
Water between two slices of bread.
Yeah, but the cucumber has more than water. It's got a light feel to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it sort of makes sense. I used to eat them when I was a kid. I used to like them. But I don't know. So apparently the reason that this was all happening was it was around this time in the mid-19th century when kerosene lamps were sort of first introduced, at least to wealthier homes. So people had light in the evening so they could dine with more than just candles. So they actually had proper amounts of light and you could have a proper dinner party without stumbling around trying to find where your sausages were. So, or of course maybe your steak. I don't know. The pigeon, probably woodcock.
Guinea fowl.
Guinea fowl. They'd been eating on their guinea fowl. But you could make sure you didn't eat all the little bones from the guinea fowl because you'd have enough light to be able to see it. So what they did was they started doing the dinners much later at night. So instead of having it like 6 o'clock while it was still light, they were having dinner around 9 o'clock. And so they also didn't really do breakfast and lunch back in those days. It was more brunch. So they'd be having like a mid-morning lunch, like 11 o'clock. So from 11 o'clock till 9 p.m., quite a lot of time. And people were, they had to keep eating late because it was fancy to be able to eat late with your kerosene lamps.
Yes.
But they did not want to have an extra meal, apparently. But they were just having that low feeling in the afternoon. And so they decided, well, the Duchess of Bedford decided, okay, well, the solution to this is I'm going to have an extra meal. It'd be a nice light afternoon tea. And apparently that's what happened. So just to bypass that problem of feeling a little tired in the afternoon, just wolf down some cucumber sandwiches.
Fair enough. Help you make it to dinner time.
So yes, the later afternoon tea was definitely the preference of the hoity-toits, the fancy pants.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's because of who started it, and everyone's like, oh yes, it must be fancy.
Yes. And it had to be a lighter selection of foods because it was not supposed to be a replacement for dinner. You didn't want to be so full that by dinner you weren't even hungry. So that's why it's just a little stopgap. So, yeah, as I mentioned, there's a few other variations of this, like the cream tea. It would be scones instead, just scones and cream and some tea. So it's a lighter... But I love scones with cream as well.
Yes.
Clotted cream, British clotted cream. If you haven't had that, fantastic.
It's absolutely my preference.
It's basically like butter and cream had a baby.
Yes.
It's yellow almost normally because it's got so much fat in it. And it's thick.
It makes you do a little happy dance, a little happy sugar dance.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, yeah, lots of famous afternoon teas around the world. The Ritz in London, of course, one of the most famous ones.
But do they all call it afternoon tea, or has this,
In England, it is called afternoon tea.
So it's only in other countries that they've taken the term high tea and like hijacked it to be something that it's not.
Well, just misunderstood it.
Yeah.
And yes, associated it with being high-class tea.
Because I think, isn't there like a high tea that they serve at Raffles in Singapore? And it's meant to be like the fanciest thing you can do in Singapore.
Could be.
And I'm pretty certain they call it... I could be incorrect, so anyone can feel free to...
Yeah, you might have to fact-check that one.
Yeah, we can fact-check it or tweet us or write into us and let us know, is the Raffles... Is it a high tea? Do they call it high tea or is it just afternoon tea?
Tweet us at Food Fun Travel. Yes, so of course that's a famous one in Singapore, whether it's called afternoon tea or not. I had one in Victoria in
British Columbia.
British Columbia.
I had one on a Azamara cruise, actually.
6-star cruising, pre-corona cruise.
Pre-corona cruise, quite a few years ago, and yes, I had the afternoon tea. It wasn't my favorite thing, I have to admit.
No, fair enough. That's because there
was
other
no
things.
Scones. It was just cucumber sandwiches and like light stuff, and I was like, "Where's my scones with jam and cream, please?"
There are other foods in the world. Afternoon tea is definitely not my favorite thing, but it is certainly a fun experience.
I was like, I'm just gonna go to the buffet and grab myself some chips.
Well, of course, because that's what you want for your afternoon tea, and a pot noodle.
Or you can go to the waffle station and get a waffle for afternoon tea.
Well, waffles are good too. So yeah, when I went to Victoria, I went to the Fairmont Empress.
Oh, I've heard that's lovely.
Has been serving afternoon tea since 1909, I think it is, and very much definitely. I double checked their website before we just started recording here, and they definitely call it afternoon tea. There is no mention of high tea.
You have to make a reservation to go do that, because I think I tried to go one time and they were like, nah.
That's because if a cruise ship is in, it's basically like pretty much an excursion trip to go there.
Yeah.
So it's very, very fancy. And I think it was very expensive. It was like 80 Canadian dollars.
Oh, wow.
Which I guess is like 65 US dollars for basically cucumber sandwiches, a selection of cakes, and a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like a pot of tea, but $65 per person.
It's a lot, but
for
the
sandwiches,
surroundings
tea and
are.
cake.
It's the surroundings and whatnot.
It's a very cool
the
experience.
The hosh-posh of it all.
Yes, if you want to hoity-toity it up in Victoria, that's a fun way to do it. So actually, amazingly enough, the high tea is such a confused version of this for naming. This afternoon tea was often at the time called low tea because people would sit in lounge chairs and enjoy a comfortable seated like a chat with friends and just be served in a very casual style. So it was actually called low tea, not high tea.
What?
At all. It's like high tea completely never been called high tea. That is definitely just something that's been introduced by foreigners who didn't understand what it was. So, yeah, and then you got your cream teas, and then also you can have a strawberry tea, which involves, of course, strawberries with scones, fresh strawberries. So that's nice.
Only in particular seasons?
Yes, exactly, depending on what time of year it is. And apparently, if you're not really into tea, you can have champagne tea.
That's my sort. Thank you.
I mean, they might also serve tea and a glass of champagne.
It's England, I think. I mean, I've been to England enough times and offended your people by refusing tea enough to know that most people are going to accept tea and just have some champers on the side.
I'd rather have a sparkling rosé tea, to be fair. I don't really like champagne very much. Sorry, champagne. Overrated. Well, overrated. All right. Yeah, so that's afternoon tea. I think, all right. So, I mean, that's the one that everyone knows about already. So I guess this isn't going to be too unfamiliar. Maybe you haven't had it before, but you're probably very aware of it. So let's talk about high tea. High tea also from around the same time, but actually before afternoon tea, probably. Early 19th century.
Well, if it's peasants.
By the peasants.
Because peasants need more food and energy to keep working in the fields and stuff, where these hoity-toities were not doing anything. So they didn't need a big meal in the afternoon, where I'd reckon that peasants need a little bit of extra juice in the afternoon to keep going. That's my assumption, or am I completely wrong?
No. I mean, that's possibly part of what it was, but it would not be a meal to keep going necessarily. It might be you started work at 6 a.m. and finished at like 4 or 5 p.m. and you get home and you are starving. And rather than having worked in the fields, this is very much like Industrial Revolution, early 19th century.
Work in a chimney.
Factories and just worked to the bone all day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, the actual reason why it's called high tea is not absolutely definite. Some people believe this was taken at a high table. Low tea at a low table. High tea at a high table, apparently.
I wouldn't put it past the British for being that just basic with their naming of things.
The other suggestion is that the latest part of the day, like just before it got dark, perhaps like that part of the day, 6 p.m., was considered the high part of the day. Like might have been a way that it was phrased in those days.
Like you just finished work, and the sun's still shining, so enjoying the last rays of light and enjoying the afternoon.
I don't know. I mean, like
joyous high.
The word high can sort of mean end. I think in this context.
Yeah.
So like the end part of the day can be called the high part of the day. I don't know, but then you have high noon as well, where the sun is at its height.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, but these are a couple of conjectures. No one seems to know for sure. Because unlike the Duchess of Bedford, who was obviously writing things down or being written about, the workers of industrial Britain were not having so much documentation written about their eating habits. So, yeah. So that's pretty much what happened. They come home starving at the end of the day, sometime between 5 and 7 p.m. Sun's getting low, whatever. Or if it's the winter, it's already dark.
Or they're coming home. They're like the men are coming home, meeting their wives, and their wives are like, "Hi, tea," and that's where it came from. It's a greeting. That's what it is.
The word "hi" was not in popular language in the modern 19th century. It would have been like hello with a HU or good morrow.
I like it. I'm going to stick with it. That's my belief now, and you can't change it.
Apparently not. Yes, so it had nothing to do with sandwiches and cakes. Probably there would have been a very big, strong pot of super caffeinated tea to keep you awake after that very long day. It would have been a really large meal served with like very heavy food. So like pies and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, you might have had crumpets though. That could have happened.
That's where the crumpets come in, yeah.
Yeah, potato cakes, potatoes.
So would that
beans.
have been like would they have had dinner as well?
So.
Or would they just had supper?
This was the point, really, that you could have supper after high tea if you were still hungry.
Yeah.
But this is a big meal, so you wouldn't necessarily need to eat again. Plus, if you're working at 6 a.m. every day, you're probably going to be asleep by 9
and they wouldn't have had lights. They didn't have the kerosene lights to eat by, so their big meal would have been preferably when it was still light.
Yep. So meat dishes if they had meat, if they could afford it. If not, cheap sort of like cheap cuts, organ meat, steak and kidney pie, probably without very much steak, mainly kidney pie,
Yeah.
organ pie or whatever. But yeah, heavy food, beans, potatoes, etc. Heavy, cheap, affordable food. Absolutely nothing to do with being high class. Everything to do with being just like a big end of day sort of meal. So yeah, they're completely different. Completely different. Not even close to the same thing. And of course, these days, people don't really have high tea. People do. I mean, I had tea time as a kid, and that was coming home from school and, yeah, having a reasonably large meal at like 4, 5 o'clock. And then maybe I'd get a snack before bedtime or something. So that was more of a, yeah, high tea and supper bringing up. But definitely isn't really seen as much as being this peasants thing. I think it's more of a
it's interesting.
Kids come home early. Adults don't get back from work at 4 o'clock anymore. I mean, or 5 o'clock. It doesn't happen. People work stupid office hours. And
that's why I always sort of, my idea, as I said in the beginning, was like a snack in the afternoon to tide you over until dinner time, till mum had cooked dinner.
Yeah. So occasionally that's what I had if I was eating with the parents later on, but mainly my parents ate by themselves later on and I got a meal.
Yeah.
At 4:30, something like that, which thinking about it now, I'm like, that is so weird. But yeah, I would never do that now. But yeah, I was well into it. Fish fingers and chips. Give me some peas.
Ew.
Yep. So yeah, so somehow I was still following that tradition as a kid, but adults don't do it because the work hours don't quite work like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, and we all call it dinner now. Once it's past 5, 6 o'clock, it's called dinner or supper if it's later.
Yeah.
So it depends what time it is. Yeah. So, all right, we've been through the two main things here, afternoon tea and high tea. So are you a lady of leisure afternoon tea, or are you a sort of gulp it down high tea peasant type?
Cream tea, please.
Cream tea. Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to find out which one you're closest to, because we're going to play posh or peasant.
All right.
Thanks to the Guardian newspaper for some inspiration on these questions, because maybe I'm not posh enough to come up with my own questions. All right, so number one, do you know what a cummerbund is?
Yes.
What is it?
It is men wearing a tuxedo. They'll have a cummerbund around their waist, and so it's like a sash for men, I guess, that go around their waist.
Yes, this is correct. You are 1% posh so far. All right. Next question, and you can play this at home, remember? Let's see how posh you are. Do you have a degree in the history of art?
Well, I have a degree in music theater, and that involved...
Oh, no, that's what like they went to like in the early 20th century, slap and tickle, dancing around a piano, old Mary Jones. Like, no, that's... music theater's not posh.
I had to study history of music.
Opera's posh.
I had to study the history of music and stuff, so...
I'll give you a quarter point.
All right.
So 1 1/4. Have you ever been punting?
No.
No.
What is punting?
Punting is where you get a thin riverboat, maybe on the Thames or in Cambridge, and you have a long stick, and you push the boat along the river.
Oh, no.
Or along a lake, or wherever you are, a body of water.
Certainly
with a
not.
Stick. Punting. So no. Was one of your childhood pets a horse or a pony?
No.
Oh dear.
Not very posh at all.
That's not gone well. So far you've got 1 1/4 points.
I used to ride my dog around like a pony occasionally. Does that count?
I don't know if riding a dog that sounds a bit more redneck than upper class riding a dog as a pony. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. All right, so this is the final one. Short quiz here. So it's out of 5. That means you got 20% posh for each question, which means at the moment you're at 25% posh out of a possible 100. It's not that great, is it?
But well, I had a feeling where this would go before we started, to be honest.
Yes, pot noodles aren't quite the poshest system. Okay, final question. What do you call the people you get drunk with?
My mates.
Yes. The correct answer would be a drinking society.
Oh, we haven't formed a society officially.
No, well then you're just drinking with friends. You are not very sophisticated. So apparently you are 25% posh.
Hey, that's at least something.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
I'll take a little posh.
Yeah, although, I mean, I'm not sure
Which is exactly why my wanting a cream tea is perfect.
Oh, there you go. You're just slightly above high tea status.
Exactly.
So, if you're listening at home, which are you? Are you a high tea? Are you an afternoon tea? Are you a cream tea? Are you posh or peasant? Please tweet us at Food Fun Travel. How many questions did you get out of 5? What was your percentage score? Let us know. We'd be glad to find out. It's a little bit of market research if we have posh listeners or peasant listeners.
Then we'll know what foods to do in the future.
Yes, we could start covering caviar in future episodes rather than lasagna.
Oh, everyone loves lasagna.
I know, I'm joking. I'm not going to be mean to lasagna at all. It's definitely not a peasant food, but it is a food of the people.
True.
Everyone loves lasagna. All right, that's it for this episode. Hope you've enjoyed listening. We hopefully will be back in a couple of weeks with another episode, but we are currently in a very crazy situation that I'm not going to announce on the show, but this might interrupt our ability to get an episode out over the next month or two. But we will be back with more episodes by October at the latest, but hopefully we'll still be getting a couple of episodes out between now and October. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully there will be some.
Hopefully.
We can talk about more food. So if you are quite new to this podcast and you haven't listened to all of our back catalogue, then please go through and listen to some of those old episodes. If you want to listen to us being really, really weird, I think the craziest one is the cider episode,
A lot of people say the cider is our craziest episode yet. Thoroughly entertaining.
History of cider, most off-the-wall episode as rated by people, whoever they may be. And for a less crazy episode, what's just an all-rounder sort of episode, do you think? What was one of your favourite ones to record?
I mean, like, going back and listening to, like, the history of Georgian food, like, what to eat in Georgia is a good
Hamburgers
all-round one.
is a good one that a lot of people will be interested in.
Definitely.
It's a double episode, so if you've got a bit more time on your hands.
Tapas, which is a 3-parter. That'll keep you busy.
Each part is sort of independent, but yes, they are 3 different aspects of tapas. So yeah, lots of different stuff. So, all right. And if you enjoy the show and you want to help us out, please recommend us to your friends. Obviously, leaving a 5-star review is fantastic. 4-star is not enough. 4-star doesn't help. 5-star is amazing. So please leave a 5-star review if you're going to leave a review at all. We'd really appreciate that. Yeah, that's it. We'll be back at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, with another episode of The Dish.